Welcome back, my friends, to the podcast that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside. Come inside. This is
Joe Knows Movies. I don't know why you messed me up. I let you mess me up, even though you didn't do anything that messed me up, but you did. So, all right. This time on Joe Knows Movies, I'm going to talk about Impractical Jokers, the movie. Look, I wanted to see this when I announced they were going to do it, and it's because I'm a fan. I'm not like a diehard fan of Impractical Jokers, but I would say that I love them. You know, there's levels of love, but I love them, and I really enjoy them. And when I had cable, fuck cable, but when I had cable, I really enjoyed watching that show, and I'd binge the shit out of it because these guys have a chemistry with each other. They're like friends, lifelong friends. You read the, the little introduction thing they have on the show. But these guys get along with each other really, really well, and you can tell. Q, Joe, Murr, and Sal, they really get along with each other. And I've seen it before where they've tried to force people that know each other into scenes where they have to act and stuff like that. Like off the top of my head, the 1517 to Paris that was directed by Clint Eastwood that had those three guys who were friends from high school or whatever, who got involved with the terrorist attack on that train. And he used the same people that did it. He didn't use actors. He used the real people. And when they were interacting with each other without the pressure of dialogue, you could see it. You could see the chemistry with them. But when they had to read off lines, holy shit, it was painful to watch. And I could not give that movie a good rating because of it. It just took me out of the events, especially when they had all these professional actors around them, doing it. With the Impractical Jokers, the movie, look, I'm not going to bullshit you. This is an overglorified episode. And it's not, the only way I could think that it's overglorified, besides it being on the screen and I had to pay, a bunch of money to watch it, is that Paula Abdul's in it. Okay. But this isn't the first time a celebrity's been on the show, so it's not really a stretch. And this movie could have just been on TV. There's nothing in there that I can see that really shows that it could have been big budget, big screen. Like when you watch the Jackass movies, there are special things that they added in to make you see that it was big screen material. Like when they had that big ending in the end of the first one, and then they did the 3D stuff with the third one, and then the second one did something I can't remember, but whatever. Okay, we're not talking about Jackass, but you see what I'm saying. This is a good movie to a point, but I was hurting the first half an hour. I really was, because in the first 30 minutes or so, it was almost boring to me. It starts off with this little thinly written plot about them as teenagers, and they fuck up a concert at Paula Abdul's, and then it shows them later, and now they're gonna, go to this concert for Paula Abdul and stuff. Okay, fine. I can see that being, kind of interesting for the story, for a plot, but I don't think it was necessary. They didn't have to Bad Grandpa it. Okay. Is it Bad Grandpa? I think, because I always mix up Bad Grandpa and Dirty Grandpa, but Bad Grandpa. So Dirty Grandpa was with De Niro. So De Niro Grandpa. All right. So this one is in the first 30 minutes, I think. I was sitting there waiting for it to take off. And I was giving it some leeway, okay, let's set up the bullshit plot and all this stuff like that, right? And then we get to see them wearing younger clothes and younger hairstyles and shit, and Murr with a full head of hair, which is hilarious. But it still wasn't anything that special. And then it cuts into their first couple of skits. And their first couple of skits were Santa Claus in the mall in the middle of the summertime. And it's an funny idea, but it wasn't funny at all. I mean, I'm just sitting there like, this feels like discarded material from the show. Like, it wasn't even good enough to be on the fucking show. So why is it in this movie? And then there's another skit right after that where they're in the middle of the square somewhere. I don't remember what city they're in, but they have to compete with this urn, and it supposedly has ashes in it, and they gotta read this eulogy thing. Was it okay? Duh. I'm such a dumbass. The obelisk or whatever the fuck that thing is called was there. So anyway, is it called the obelisk? So I was right. Yeah, obelisk sounds cooler though.
You're literally talking to nobody.
That makes it even funnier. So, world, are you out there? Jesus, is it you? All right. So the skit where they have to read their eulogy plans to, random people in the middle of this square in Washington, D.C. It's not really that funny either. It was just kind of, but that's it. And so I'm wondering, what the fuck is going on? Did I really just spend all this money on something that doesn't even deserve to be on the show? And then all of a sudden, it takes a turn. Thank God it takes a turn, because I was wondering, what the fuck am I doing here? What the hell did I bring my kids here for? What did I subject Mike to? Because Mike doesn't even watch the show. And now he's got to be thinking, oh my God, what kind of a piece of shit is this? Thank God Joe paid for my ticket. So it was, but then I don't know what part happened, but it started to get funnier. And I think one of the first things that set it off was this running gag with Murr in his hotel room, where one of the guys would come up to his door and knock, and he'd open it up, and there'd be some weird fucking random party going on in his room. And each time it happened 3 times in the movie, which the rule of 3, that's when it always works the best. And it was hilarious. The first time I think was a bunch of old people all dressed up like they were like I don't know, it was like a precursor to an Eyes Wide Shut party or some shit, or I don't know, maybe a fondue party. I have no idea, but it was hilarious. And then there was one where the room was full of bubbles and shit, and like I don't know. Anyway, that running gag was hilarious, and that got us laughing. The other thing was Sal being stuck in the hotel room with the white tiger, and that set it off, because anyone that knows about Sal knows that he's terrified of cats, and the bigger the cat is, the worse off he's going to react. So that was funny. And then there were other funny things too. Not everything was hilarious, but it gained this momentum that got better. Like when Q had to read off this YouTuber conference thing where his parents' porno kept cutting into it. And that was pretty funny too, because I love it when they include their parents into it, because their parents have a good sense of humor. The show has paid for their Lexuses, so I hope so. I hope that they do have a good sense of humor about it. But it reminded me of Tom Green, when Tom Green used to fuck with his parents. But Tom Green's parents hated him fucking with them, or at least the script or the show made it look like they got tired of his shit. Okay, but anyway, there was other stuff too that was pretty damn funny, like the boat, the soldier in the boat that was calling SOS, that had a little bit of funny moments to it, but it wasn't great. And the broke down car scene had some really funny moments as well. And the Atlanta Hawks interview. I love Joe Gatto. Joe Gatto is so fucking funny to me. He's my favorite character, but every character has something distinct. That's what's great about these 4 guys, is that even though I have my favorite, I never hate any of them, because they're so unique in their own way. Sal gives off this gay vibe, but he's not gay. So it's even more hilarious because he's not. And he's just more like this over-pampered Jewish son or something from New York. So he just, like, mama just took care of him way too much when he was a kid or something. And so he's starting to sound like his mom when he talks and complains about shit. It's hilarious. I don't even know if he's like that in real life. Like, maybe he just has become that character. I don't know. But Q as well. Q is the most quiet out of the group, but he's also funny in his own way. And then Murr, but Joe. I love Joe, but here's the thing about this movie and Joe. 2 times now, I have seen the live show in Sacramento for the Impractical Jokers, which I liked it, but I didn't love it because they showed way too many clips and not them. So they would come out like, okay, if I just had to guesstimate, the show was about 90 minutes, maybe a little more. And they would come out and they would, do their little, blah, 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 blah. And it was funny. It was good. It was entertaining. But then they go, oh, and now here's a clip that we never showed on the show. And then they show these clips. And I think that there was probably 2/3 of the show was the clips, and only 1/3 of the show was them actually out bantering in front of the audience. I think it was a huge wasted opportunity where they could have interacted with the audience and had some embarrassing things happen, but they didn't do it. And I was like, fuck, that would have been great, but whatever, So this movie with Joe Gatto is another thing that disappointed me, was just like with the live show, I wanted him to run across the stage and go, Larry, because the Larry thing is goddamn hilarious if you've ever seen the show. And he didn't do it then, and he didn't do it in this movie either. It just said Larry on the license plate of the car they were driving. That was it. So it's like, there's certain things, like, okay, if you're watching a Deadpool movie, there's got to be a mention of a chimichanga in that shit. You just have to have it. So if you're going to have an Impractical Jokers movie, there has to be a fucking Larry screen. And there wasn't one. But whatever. I'll move on. I'll get on with my life one way or another. So when it all boils down to me recommending this movie or not, if you're an Impractical Jokers fan, absolutely. You got to see the movie. I think you should support it. You should spend money and go see it in theaters. Just don't have high expectations because it is just a glorified episode, okay, with Paula Abdul, who's not a great actress, by the way. Shocker there. But it is worth seeing, like I said. And I believe that Mike did like it. Mike enjoyed it. I don't know how much he enjoyed it. You'll find out on Mr. Podcast. But that's not Mr. Podcast. This is Joe Knows Movies. All right. Is there anything else about this movie worth saying? Anything at all? Not a goddamn thing. I wish there was more, but there isn't. So I'll just end it with that show opinion. That's it. That's all we got. Oh, fuck. The funniest skit. I forgot about the funniest skit. You know what? One little addendum to this shit of just Joe opinion is the Jaden Smith thing. I am not a fan in any way whatsoever, Jaden Smith. I think he's an overpampered child who's trying to get some kind of attention and get out of the shadow of his parents. Fine. And I don't want anything to do with him. I don't care about any of the things that he talks about or is into, that he tweets. None of that shit. But I will say that the skit in this movie where Sal had to get another fucking Jaden Smith tattoo on himself was hilarious. And I love the fact that Jaden Smith was game to do that with them. That was really cool. And I enjoyed that skit. I think that was probably one, if I couldn't think of another one, that was the best skit of the movie, other than the running gag with Murr and the hotel rooms. And then also there were like 7 different covers of Forever Your Girl. I haven't liked Forever Your Girl from Paula Abdul since, like, I don't know, the early 90s. And I still don't like the fucking song anymore. There's a few of her songs I still love because it's nostalgic to me. And I used to have a huge crush on her. But Forever Your Girl, it was just funny. The running gag with them playing all these different covers. You know, one was with an acoustic guitar, and then you had like a hip hop version and a hard rock version. All these different kinds. It was hilarious to have that running gag going. Okay, so like I said, you're a fan, go see it. All right, that's just opinion.